Notre Dame, Iowa State is about to get started. Yeah, we'll do the whole Night at the Roxbury thing. That's genius. So hopefully this stops in a second. Anyway, Indiana James Madison today moves on. By the way, I'm Dustin DePere. I call him Jeremy Price. I should have done that.
You don't know by now.
Yeah, if you don't know now, why are you watching? Anyway, Indiana beats James Madison 83-62. More or less did what you're supposed to do against a number 16 seed if you're a number 1 seed. And in a tournament that hasn't had it go that way so far. A lot of higher seeds have fallen already. Gonzaga, made it interesting against Southern. Florida Gulf Coast just beat Georgetown, which is just crazy to me. Harvard beat New Mexico. Indiana comes out, basically puts James Madison away really, really quick and just more or less just handles it the way you're supposed to handle it.
And that's really the thing in these matchups when you have a superior team and kind of an underdog is, are you going to let them hang around? What kind of message are you going to send early? And IU quickly sent the message that they weren't going to be messing around, that they wanted to take care of business and take care of it early. Scored the first 9 points of the game, all courtesy of Yogi Ferrell, and really never looked back.
Yeah, no, obviously Ferrell is the story of this one. James Madison came in looking at this game and saying, they had a lineup that was basically everybody was between 6'4" and 6'6". And they had to figure out a way, how do you guard a 7-footer with that? How do you guard a 6'9" player on top of that with that? And what they really decided to do was just really double Cody Zeller and double him hard. So they had to find somewhere where they could sort of lax a little bit, where they could sort of take a breather, maybe not take a breather, but at least, hedge a little bit, sag back a little bit just so that there was more sort of help in the paint. And I think part of what they did was they looked and said, okay, well, Yogi Ferrell isn't going to beat us off the dribble. He's not necessarily going to beat us with a jumper. Maybe if we give him a few feet, it'll be harder for him to beat us off the dribble, and we'll force him to shoot. Well, neither one of those things helped, especially in the first 5 minutes. He blew by them, even though they were giving him a lot of space. They were giving him, a pretty big cushion. He ran right past them anyway. Kind of like a cornerback. If you're giving him 10 yards and he still overruns you, that's what Yogi Ferrell did in the first 3 buckets. After that, he hits 3 of those. They seemed like they sat back on him even more, and he drills 2 threes. Basically scored 14 of Indiana's first 16 points. And he only scored 2 points after that, but that was really all that mattered.
Yeah, and those 3-pointers are huge because going forward, that's the shot that Yogi Ferrell has to be able to hit, is that 3-pointer. Yeah. He doesn't need to hit a lot of them, but he needs to hit 1 or 2 enough. Just to keep the defenses honest, because he's the one guy that's the kind of the one shot. If you're looking at the Indiana offense, that's the one shot you're probably willing to give up, is the Yogi Ferrell 3-pointer. Yeah. And if he can make just a couple of those, it opens things up for everybody else. It opens things up for himself so that he can get that dribble penetration to create.
Yeah, and he's had that already. It really was the first couple months, first month or 2 of the season that he wasn't really hitting that, and you knew it was coming basically because he was this kind of shooter at Park Tudor. I've always looked at him and said, he's going to be a 35 to 38% 3-point shooter. Not great. You're never going to see Jordy Hulls out of him. You're never going to see Victor Oladipo's season this year out of him. But if he can get close to 40, that'd be huge. Anywhere near 40, that would be huge. And he's been getting there. But it really just got everybody started, I think, because you could tell they were very confident shooting the ball here. It's a tighter backdrop, obviously. It's really a completely different situation from what they had in Chicago. It seemed like they were anxious to get shooting. Even Jordy Hulls just seemed like he just couldn't wait to pull up and just try to hit one and just, feel what it's like with that tight backdrop again. And once Yogi got them rolling, it seemed like just everybody started hitting.
Yeah, as good a start as it was for Indiana, it was kind of the worst case scenario for James Madison. Their coach talked about yesterday that against a team like Indiana, you're not going to be able to win the game in the first 5 or 10 minutes.
Right.
But I think it's certainly possible that you can lose a game in that first 5 or 10 minutes, and I think that definitely happened today. They dug themselves such a deep hole that there was just no getting out.
Yeah, and I don't even know if they dug it. Really, Indiana dug it.
Well, that's true.
There wasn't. I didn't see a whole lot of just bad James Madison mistakes. They only turned the ball over 4 times in the first half.
Right.
It was just a question of Indiana needed to prove early. We are athletically superior to you. You cannot hang with us. You don't belong in this game. You pack it in.
And I think
and go ahead.
I was just going to say, I think it was important psychologically for Indiana too, coming off the Big Ten tournament, kind of the last end of the season, 3-3, and it was kind of up and down and up and down. I think to have a dominant type of game that kind of reasserts not only to their opponents but to themselves that they're still a really, really good team.
Right. No, it does work both ways with the confidence, especially in a game like this. You want to make sure that they understand that they can't do it. That it's not possible, that they just don't have the horses, and you want to make yourself understand the same thing. Not the same thing, but just that you are not going to be the first number 1 seed to get beat in the by number 16. You are not going to go down in history as And because all it takes is a couple minutes of them sort of playing with you, and then you start to get worried, you start to get tight, and you start to think, man, this isn't going to really happen to us, is it? And Indiana never put themselves in a position to start having those thoughts.
And sometimes it's a case where that's kind of the nice part of playing the second day. You can watch all that first day stuff. You watch Gonzaga struggle against the Southern, and it kind of is a little warning bell that kind of goes off in your head that, hey, this is possible if we fool around and don't take things seriously. And clearly that was not the case.
Clearly not at all. And they got going in just every aspect. They had 5 guys in double figures. Farrell scores 14 of his 16 in those first 5 minutes. Didn't do a whole lot in terms of scoring after that. Still had, I think, 6 assists, 8 rebounds, had a bunch of guard rebounds, just chasing down the long ones today. Jordy Holes had 10, hit a couple of threes. Christian Watford hit a couple of threes, had 9. Cody Zeller, it was tough to get him the ball just because they were working so hard on him inside, but he still went 4 for 5, 11 points. Will Sheehy had a pretty big night with 15. Victor Oladipo looked pretty good with 11. They just got pretty much everybody going. I think you saw some bench guys make some decent contributions. Remy Abel found it finally. It took him a long time to find it. He lost it for a long time, but he's got a shot all of a sudden.
Yeah, he was good last week in Chicago and picked right up where he left off last week this week, and that's huge to have somebody that can provide both offense and defense. I mean, you kind of know what Remy Abel can bring at the defensive end of the floor, but if he can bring any kind of offensive threat, that is just a huge bonus.
Right. You don't need an endless bench in the tournament, but you need more than one guy. I mean, they've been relying almost solely on, in terms of for points and really statistical contributions, they've mostly been relying almost entirely on Sheehy for bench stuff. And it seemed like, one, they needed Abel back to be that 7th guy that he was at the beginning of the year. He's starting to become that guy again. You saw a little bit out of Hollowell. Hana Perea caught the ball.
Yep.
That was a big step. Got a rebound, got a put back, looked more confident. I mean, that's the biggest thing. When he just needs to actually catch the ball and realize that he can do that.
Yeah, and it's one of the few times we've really got to see him in a game situation where he got to do something like that. A lot of times his minutes have been very limited, and if he's going to get the ball, it's pretty much chasing down a loose ball. Or
he didn't have a field goal in Big Ten play. I didn't even realize that until I looked at that. He had 2 points in Big Ten play, didn't have a field goal. So that was the first time in a while.
And Derek Elston, I thought, was good.
Yeah.
I think 6 minutes in the first half, didn't play much in the second half, but looked good in it.
Yeah, no, he looked decent. I mean, he got running a little bit. He hadn't played at all in the Big Ten tournament. He said at the time he wasn't hurt. Apparently he was. Apparently somebody else needed to make that point to him. But he looked healthy. He looked decent. He was entertaining in the post-game locker room. Basically, he was putting on a show. Some of the TV stations gave him the microphone and had him ask questions. And that was everything you think it was. Just as enjoyable,
And I think
it was fascinating.
Actually asked him some questions as well.
Yeah, so. Which also was entertaining. I mean, it was great. You need to have a microphone in Derek Elston's hands as much as possible. And even if he doesn't know what he's talking about, sometimes that's the best possible scenario. Just let Derek go. Just let Derek go. Like, hey, was it over when the Germans bombed Pearl Harbor? Just let him go.
I would say foul number 13.
That's where Derek was today.
His first,
special with that.
second.
But you could definitely tell, they let James Madison come back and make it look respectable. Jamie, I thought, played hard. I mean, I haven't watched those guys and seen where that program used to be. You could tell there's a lot more talent there. There used to be, well-coached. Andre Nation at 24 points. He's a pretty impressive kid. He's a freshman. So they were able to kind of get back into it as Indiana kind of lacks, but still, IU came out of it, I think, with just a lot of confidence.
Definitely, but, JMU, I think, scored 25 or 30 of their points there in the last 10 minutes. So, prior to that, Indiana's defense was
pretty
really
suffocating. They were pretty much up into them and just kept them from doing anything they want to do. So now we got to turn this forward because we don't want to talk about a 116 game forever. Indiana gets Temple. Temple beat North Carolina State today. I personally think that was the best case scenario for Indiana. North Carolina State is a very high ceiling, low floor team. They are capable of just disappearing, forgetting that they're in a game, and that's really what happened to them in the first half. And if they do that, you can blow them out. But they've got athletes at a level that can keep them in it if they care. C.J. Leslie, Richard Howell, Ty Warren, Rodney Purvis, Lorenzo Brown. I mean, it goes on and on and on. And you could see in that last couple minutes reasons why you don't want to see those guys. And Temple was able to hold them off. And I think that was kind of a better situation for Indiana.
Yeah, really, it was a case of NC State just waited too long to get going today. I mean, you put 2 more minutes on that clock, and they probably win that game.
Yeah, almost definitely. I mean, the way they had it going, the only problem they had was fouls. I mean, they had to foul to keep putting Temple on the line. Right. And C.J. Leslie fouled out with, 10 seconds to go, basically, when that was, obviously it was over by that point, but they just kind of inbounded it. He happened to be in the front of the press, meaning the foul, which I don't really get. so much when it's C.J. Leslie and he has 4 fouls. Yeah, I mean, a couple more minutes, they've got a shot. I mean, they just started hitting threes, they started getting the rim, and started imposing will on Temple, and they were lucky the game ended. That being said, Temple's got a couple of really good players. Khalif Wyatt had 31 today. That is a tough kid. East Coast guard, that guy.
Kind of reminds you of a Ben Gordon, Kemba Walker type for comparison's sake. I think.
He's one of those guys that just isn't going to be denied. I mean, like he gets the ball and he might just bull rush drive right at you. One of those just fearless East Coast playground point guard. You've seen a lot of those guys, and Wyatt's got one of those. He was tough, and he was playing with a busted thumb, and it didn't matter. He was still playing really tough. Jake O'Brien, I thought, was also a tough matchup guy. He had 18 points. He got most of them early. He sort of disappeared a little bit, but he's a 6'9" guy who can shoot threes. Watford-esque in that sort of vein, I think. I mean, he plays more of a 5. They don't really have a true big guy, obviously, like Indiana does. But those two guys, I think, can beat you with scores. They've got a couple other pretty good athletes, pretty rangy guys. They can give Indiana some props. Like I said, I don't think they've got the athletic ceiling that North Carolina State has, but they've got tough kids.
Yeah, Temple's what I would call a what you see is what you get kind of team. There's not a lot of variety there. Everybody kind of has their role and has their things they do. But what they do well is they understand the game, they're patient, and they're really good at dictating the tempo where they like it. And that will be the real clash, I think, on Sunday, is can Indiana get this game into a higher tempo, something a little faster pace, something that they're more comfortable with, or is Tempo going to turn this into a half-court, grind-it-out type of thing?
Right, absolutely. We'll have plenty more talking about that one tomorrow. We'll be back here all day. Fun stuff. Thanks, guys.